Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to CLS Live, a live stream series presented by the publishers of Contact Lens Spectrum. I am your host, Jason Jedlicka, and as always, it's my pleasure and privilege to be part of this program. Each month, I have the chance to chat with leaders in the world of contact lenses, finding out what's going on in the contact lens industry from their perspective and with their insights. We talk about new and future products, the latest research, worldwide trends in prescribing, and even bring you updates from the floor of contact lens conferences. And speaking of conferences, we're going to take today's episode to recap the recently held Global Specialty Lens Symposium that was last month. This was the 15th annual GSLS conference. The first held it was in 2009 and is truly the premier meeting for specialty contact lenses. To recap the conference for us, we have two of the program committee members, Eef Van der Worp and Ashley Wallace Tucker. To introduce them, Eef is an educator, writer, and researcher. He runs his own research and education consultancy, Eye Contact Lens, based in Amsterdam. He received his optometry degree from Hogeschool van Utrecht in the Netherlands and his PhD from the University of Maastricht in 2008. He is on the education committee for a number of international conferences, including the GSLS, is a board member of the BCLA and Contact Lens and Anterior Eye. Eef is affiliated as an adjunct professor with Pacific College of Optometry and the University of Montreal University College of Optometry. Ashley is also an educator and a private practice owner. She received her optometry degree at the University of Houston College of Optometry, where she also completed her cornea and contact lens residency. She is now adjunct faculty at UHCO and owns a private practice in Houston, where the majority of her clinic time is spent managing specialty contact lens and myopia management patients. She's on the advisory board for GPLI, is the public education chair for the Scleral Lens Education Society, and a council member for the contact lens and cornea section of the AOA. Welcome, Eef and Ashley, to you both. It's great to have you here for today's episode of CLS Live. Noteworthy as it is, for the first time we've had two guests at the same time. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you here. Eef, I think you've done this once before, so I expect great things of you today. So
no pressure.
So again, we're going to recap the GSLS, a conference that I've been to every year except for one when I was unable to for health reasons, but always my favorite conference of the year. And you two have the pleasure of making that conference happen, being on the planning committee. So Eef, why don't I start with you? Give me a little bit of how you got involved with the planning committee and where that's been over these years.
Yeah, well, surely is my favorite meeting of the year, and I go to quite a few. But if I had to, I don't want to miss one, and that is this one. And in fact, I had to miss GSLS for 2 years. So for me, it was 3 years since the last one because of COVID, of course. And of course, last year there was a meeting, but it was very difficult for international people to fly in. So it was great, Jason, being on the floor again and meeting about 1,000 people, friends, colleagues, people from industry everywhere. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Your question was when did I start? Sorry about that. Well, actually, you mentioned 2009 as the start of the Global Specialty Lens Symposium, which is true, but it started as the Global Orthokeratology Symposium in Toronto. I think it was 2002 and 2004. And I started on the GOS committee in 2005 when I moved to Chicago, and then ever since, basically.
And the Global Keratoconus meeting, it was for a year or two in there.
That's
too.
Right. That's right.
We just decided to encompass the whole thing and make it
everything. Yeah, everything specialty. Awesome. Which is a good point, but we'll come to that later, I think.
Yeah. And you've been at this for a long time. And Ashley, you're new this year to the committee. And how was working with Eef and the rest of the committee? And I take it Pat Caroline hasn't scared you away yet.
You know, Pat tried, but I'm coming back for more next year, I promise. No, Pat was delightful, and so was everyone on the committee. It was fantastic, Jason. I have been an attendee since my residency in 2010, and it's pretty unbelievable what goes on behind the scenes. As an attendee, you take for granted just how all of this just kind of comes together, right? But being on the other side of things gives you a heck of an appreciation for all that has to be done with the program committee and all the behind the scenes people that I didn't even know existed. Honestly, there's a whole team of people that are working nonstop at this meeting. So it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start by recapping the meeting. As you mentioned, so it was 2 years ago, I believe, that we did this all virtual. Maybe it was, 2 years ago. It was when we were all virtual. And then last year in person, but seems smaller in numbers.
Almost like a US version of GSLS.
Maybe,
It was hard for us to come.
And it felt like this year being there that we were back to pre-COVID, but maybe not. I mean, tell us a little bit about the turnout, both in terms of the number of attendees, the vendors, and so on. And are we close to where we were at this point?
You want me to get started, Ashley?
I think you should take that one, Eef, since you have a little bit more history with the numbers. What do you think? If the energy felt great, I have to say.
The vibe was completely back. It felt like, man, we're back in business, quite literally. Actually, in terms of number, we were very close to pre-COVID numbers. We had, like I said, about 1,000 people on the floor. Let me look this up. I think we had 38 countries represented, so pretty cool. Maybe just 5% lower or something than pre-COVID, but travel was just catching up, and a lot of people still needed visa and special vaccinations and everything to get into the US. So pretty much up to speed, Jason, to where we were.
Yeah, that's great news. So let's talk a little bit about the education program, because again, GSLS is so many different facets. The education's amazing. The scientific posters we're going to talk about. The exhibit hall, I don't think there's any exhibit hall that's quite like GSLS in terms of the amount of time that the attendees spend interacting with vendors. But let's talk about education first. So we know there's two main vibes these days in specialty lenses. There's scleral lenses and there's myopia management. And obviously there's presbyopia and everything, but these seem to be the areas that still keep most of our attention. So if we start with scleral lenses, was there something about this year's program that was prevailing in thought? What brought new revelations into patient fitting or management? Was there something that was increasingly emphasized this year on the program compared to previous years?
I'll take this one, Eef. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I had the pleasure of moderating what is usually called the Scleral Lens Super Session. This year we called it Scleral Lenses, Big Innovations, where I had a great panel of lecturers and thought leaders. And we focused on scleral lenses beyond ectasias, beyond keratoconus, the uses that maybe not that we think about on a day-to-day basis. So managing ocular surface disease, graft versus host, actually using them to heal corneal scars. Of course, those patients need special attention, but they're quite successful. So I'm hoping we relayed the message that scleral lenses can be used in mainstream practice beyond ectasias and keratoconus. And then we also had a great talk about the future of scleral lens optics, utilizing wavefront guided optics to fit these patients that need a little bit more TLC when it comes to their prescriptions. We have the technology, it's just not in everyday practice. So I'm hoping that becomes part of the future of scleral lens optics.
Yeah, that is an exciting thing about scleral lenses. And I think, the three of us have seen it. We've seen patients that 5 years ago, we would have been content getting them to 20/30 plus one. Exactly. Now we can get them to 20/20. And it's really like that whole changing lives all over again when scleral lenses first started. So exactly. And there are more companies bringing that to us. There's going to be more lenses bringing that to us. I do think that's here to stay. So it's a great point. Let's shift over to myopia management. I think again,
can I just add one thing, Jason? Because
absolutely,
on the scleral front, that was a fantastic session that you organized, Ashley, and moderated. And the other session that was extremely popular was worst case scenarios, which was the session with Dr. Corina Koppen, ophthalmologist from Belgium, and then Debbie Jacobs, so involving MDs, ODs, work on these really cases that, again, a couple of years ago you would think I'm not even going to touch that. So I'm feeling that we're up to the next level with scleral. So that is, we're trying to balance that a little bit. We want to give beginners a good starting course if you not have the experience with sclerals. So that is sometimes difficult. And then at the same time, we want to do all the advanced stuff. And I think that was covered both pretty well.
I agree.
Yeah, there certainly seems to be this, the entry level. There's your basic ectasia patient, your dry patient that I think covers a lot of what scleral lenses are about. But there's also this smaller population of really difficult cases, and how we address those folks. I think we're getting better at giving them better outcomes as the technology really pushes forward. I think that's an area of growth as well. So great point. So again, back to myopia management. I think if you look at the landscape in optometry, even ophthalmology, especially in the pediatric realm, contact lens fitters, is there anything hotter than myopia management just in our entire industry right now? And it's funny because myopia management has been a contact lens practitioner thing for the most part. And I think that's changing a little as we see more pediatrics and private practitioners and those who practice primary care getting involved. Talk about myopia management at this meeting, and what did we learn, and what did it whet our appetites for the future of myopia management?
Yeah, what we try to do, Jason, so as you know from the same organization, Broadcast Media or Pentavision previously, so the makers of Spectrum, they have a spin-off almost of the Global Specialty Lens Symposium, which is the Global Myopia Symposium. So what we try to do at the Specialty Lens Symposium is to focus as much as we can on the technical part of, like you said, it's for a large part a contact lens issue, or at least in our field. And so we try to deal with these technical things. So, for instance, Ortho-K was big on the program. There's a new, I would say, tendency, I would guess, to go smaller with the optical zone size to get more effect. We saw a couple of posters, which we'll get to later, on that topic. So, real good technical stuff. While also we had Kate Gifford and Ian Flitcroft talking about general myopia as well. But we're not going to talk too much about causes and everything, and atropine will be mentioned, but that is more Global Myopia Symposium.
Gotcha. So to that extent, if we look at the contact lens thing, you mentioned smaller optic zones. Did we talk about other modalities? Did soft lenses? I mean, are there people bringing new soft lens technology into this space as well that was brought up at the meeting?
I'm
not sure if I didn't get any new information on soft lenses.
You bring up a sensitive point with me, Jason, because I'm a big advocate of trying to bring that in, actually. And I can assure you next year, it should be more in the program. Jedlicka to me, it's not a scleral lens meeting. It's not a myopia meeting. It's a specialty lens symposium. Right. And I think we're missing out on soft lenses when it comes to the irregular cornea. We can do much more. And there was actually a good session on that. And I think we can do even better when we think about all the opportunities, the optics, the higher order aberration, wavefront correction. I see a bright future actually for specialty custom-made soft lenses. So stay tuned for that one.
Okay, well, hey, just so you know, there's someone on the planning committee on the call with us here, Eef, and Ashley is. Maybe you need to talk to her after this is over about that. Yeah, she can get you on the program next year. Let's talk about beyond sclerals and myopia. Anything else from the program that you really loved or that really jumped out that was memorable for you this year?
Oh, for me, I love Dr. Jones, Lyndon Jones, one about the future of contact lenses. He gave some great examples of some virtual reality, augmented reality type of contact lenses that might be part of the future. And then some things about how contact lenses may be able to detect and treat ocular and maybe even some systemic conditions, and then the potential for improving vision for low vision patients. Just so many cool things in his lecture. So I was really fascinated by that one.
Great. Eef, any thoughts there? Anything you want to add in?
Anything particular? I really like, just in general, but then we're going away from the education, the interaction. Again, after 3 years, being able to talk to all my friends, all the industry, researchers, new kids that come out, the residents, the posters, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That part was surely the highlight of the meeting for me.
Okay, so let's talk about posters then. It feels like every year there's more posters, and I don't know how the submissions compare, but I feel like, again, in our field, in our industry, that this meeting is increasingly looked at as a place for scientific posters to be presented, that it's gaining increasing credibility in the industry as a place for that information to come out. Talk about the number of posters. How many did we have this year, and were there any particular themes and whatnot?
Yeah. So if you think about evidence-based medicine, Jason, people always think everything needs to be backed up by science. And in our specialty lens arena, as you know, as we all know, that's not always easy, right? So actually, if you look at in depth into that whole evidence-based medicine, it's a combination of evidence-based science with clinical experience and then patient values. And I think that's what makes our industry so interesting. Not everything can be backed up, because scleral lens wouldn't be here if everything would have been backed up, needed to be backed up in the past. So having said that, we try to bring that in as much as possible. And we're so happy that we had 155 posters and free papers submitted. I would think 95% was accepted. So please keep doing that. We have 3 categories. One is the research one is clinical case reports, and then a third category is also clinical, but then for the residents, about 1/3 each in terms of numbers. And well, if you compare that, for instance, to the BCLA, which is, probably one of the biggest and most important meetings in our industry, they have about the same number of submissions. So I think we're doing pretty well in just that specialty lens arena. Having said that, in terms of topics, it is a little bit scleral heavy, which is good, of course. It's definitely our bread and butter. But let me look that up. So I think out of the all the posters, 57 were on sclerals out of the 155. And then second would be myopia, indeed, 28. And another 20 posters on anterior segment disease, so more advanced cases and all that. So that leaves a little bit, maybe small numbers, I would say, for corneal GPs. We didn't talk about that. But, if you look at all the lens fits around the world, about 1/4 is sclerals, about 1/4 is ortho-K, and half of all the lens fits in the world is still with corneal GP. So while that is a topic of interest, and it was a fantastic session by Pat Caroline and Renny Kojima on that, in terms of posters and new research in the field, I think it's kind of thin. So hopefully next year they'll be better.
So are you saying that the posters are case report heavy, like clinical cases heavy, as opposed
No,
to
that was about 1/3. But the number of research posters on corneal GPs was 1. So and actually that won 1/3 prize. But still, we need more posters, more research in the corneal GP arena, because there's still a lot we can learn and we can do. And
and maybe a few more on specialty soft lenses too, right?
Oh yeah.
Please.
All right. Well, again, I'm going to go back to something we talked about earlier, and that is the exhibit hall. I remember, like, early days of GSLS, the exhibit hall having about 12 booths, and they were all just little one-table booths. And now that exhibit hall is amazing. So if we can talk about exhibits, and then, of course, again, the networking. I think GSLS is just so unique because so many of us there have such similar lives. We can relate. The networking world, where every person you meet has the potential to be someone to collaborate with or learn from. That networking aspect is so unique. Can you talk a little bit about exhibits and the extracurricular activities that go on at GSLS and how they enrich the meeting?
Sure, I can maybe take that one. So I asked Laura just to be sure. We had 56 exhibitors and sponsors this year, which is pretty remarkable. And the vibe in the exhibit hall was outstanding. The whole networking idea, it's where I go to get new ideas, to collaborate with like-minded people. There's no shortage of extracurricular activities, like you alluded to, Jason. I think every evening there was some sort of big event going on, either with GPLI's award ceremony. I think Woo You had an event. The Synergize had some sort of launch one night as well. So it's the place to be. That's for sure in January, right?
I agree. Yeah, so we're getting a little short on time. I want to give you guys each a moment or two just to talk about something about the meeting that you love most. And maybe it was just what we talked about, all the networking and extracurriculars. What do you love most about GSLS that keeps you coming back every year?
Well, let me mention one thing, Jason. Now that we were talking about it, it just came up. I think it's very important that people understand we have basically three routes apart from all the networking, and that is general sessions, the big sessions that Ashley was talking about, like the scleral super session and the myopia, and et cetera. So that is plenary. That's a big room with hundreds of people. Then we have breakout sessions, and you can submit for that. And the window is already open for next year. So if you want to submit a talk, typically a 1-hour talk, you can do that. It's CE approved. We'll make sure we go through that whole process. No products are mentioned. It's all good generic education. And then there are other breakouts. And some people I noted didn't know the difference between one and the others. And those are industry breakouts. For me, those are the most important, important not, but most interesting ones sometimes. New stuff. You can talk to the manufacturers and but those are not CE approved. And some people were maybe complaining that it was too commercial. Well, it's a industry breakout. So they can be if they want to, or they can keep it generic. It's up to the company. So it's important to keep these three in mind, I think. And there's always something going on at any time. And if not, there's always the posters, which is open, 24/7 almost. Well, not 24/7, but all day long. And then at 1 hour, I think all the posters presenters are actually available at the poster, so you can talk to them too. So you have all these gurus, you have all these big research names, and they're at that posters, and you can talk to them, you can touch them. That to me is really the amazing part of GSLS, Jason.
Nice. Ashley, anything that you'd like to add as far as your favorite parts of the meeting and what you really look forward to the most?
Yeah, when I come back from GSLS, I feel invigorated, energized. It's where I go to get new ideas and to collaborate with my colleagues. I can't tell you the quality of education that comes out of GSLS. It's unmatched. I agree with everything that Eef said. 100%. So nothing more to add to that.
It's better than going to a spa.
Oh,
right?
it's totally better.
You get more.
You can go to a spa
it's like
while
a spa
you're
for
in
your
Vegas
brain,
too,
right?
so you can do that too. No, I love, and for someone who hasn't been to GSLS or hasn't been in a long time, and maybe they haven't seen how the program's evolved, I do agree. I love the fact that you've got these super sessions that everyone attends together and covers, some really deep topics really well. But then you've got the breakouts where you say you've got the choice of 5 or 6 classes, and you can tailor the meeting then to what I want to learn more about. And then you've got the manufacturer sessions, which allow you to learn more about new lenses or instrumentation that can help you. And so I think it gives you the ability to capture the essence of the meeting and yet customize it to yourself too. And it's just a great meeting in that way. And I love how the program committee has evolved it to this stage. I think it's a perfect format for this type of meeting. So,
well, and then let's mention, of course, Karen DeLos, who's the education chair, and then great job and then Patrick, Caroline, you mentioned him already, and then of course Jason, Jacob Nichols is the big chief.
Yeah, and you guys have a great committee in terms of diversity of experiences and backgrounds to bring. You know, some in academia, some in private practice, and you know, I think it's a great mix of folks on the committee to get a well-rounded program that meets everybody's needs. So you guys do a great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And unfortunately, as always, we could probably talk for hours, but we're limited on time, so we're going to bring this episode to a close. Many thanks to Ashley and Eef for being here, sharing and recapping this meeting. As always, great insights and a great time chatting with you both. As a reminder, you can catch previous episodes of CLS Live on the Contact Lens Spectrum page on Facebook or on clspectrum.com. And we also have the printed transcripts of the show now in Spectrum each month. And as great as it was to be back in the driver's seat after giving the reins over to Phil Morgan for a few months, and I get to be back, but I'm leaving again already. I get to pass the host duties to Ashley for the next few months. She's going to take some time to explore an important topic, and that of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the contact lens world, in practice, industry, academia, and more. So this is an important topic for all of us. Be sure to join us for this series, starting with our March program. Thank you all again, and see you next month.
Thank you, Jason.
You bet.